Donald Trump has signed a ban on citizens of 12 countries traveling to the U.S., claiming the move will protect against foreign terrorists. The ban comes as the White House restricted all foreign students seeking to study at Harvard University, escalating its attempts to exert control over the institution. Let's get more on this with Alex Rudalevige. Good to have you with us today. Firstly, why have these 12 countries been targeted for bans? In particular, what do they have in common?
Well, according to the proclamation issued by the president, these 12 countries and then another 7 that have partial travel bans placed upon them are not fully cooperating with the kind of vetting that the United States would like to see with regards to immigrants. That is to say, security guarantees cannot be made. We can't get information about folks coming in. Somebody more cynical might say that more than half of these countries are from Africa. Some usual suspects, objects of Trump ire are also included: Haiti, Venezuela. Interestingly, Cuba, which of course has had an outsized impact on American politics for the last 5 decades. But yeah, we have a different, each country gets a short and slightly different write-up in the proclamation in terms of its rationale. But the overall idea and the part of U.S. law that this is included under basically implicates national security interests for the country.
Yes, Andy, was the Colorado attack that's alleged to be a terrorist incident by the FBI a big factor? And noting that Egypt, where the accused is from, is not the target of the ban.
No, that's correct. It's certainly mentioned rhetorically, the idea that we need to vet immigrants better so that they don't commit criminal acts is certainly front and center of the rhetorical push for this. But this has been coming for a while. Back on January 20th, when the president was inaugurated for the second time, he basically said then that he would reissue a travel ban. Remember, there was a 2017 travel ban that ultimately, after several revisions, was then upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. So this has been in the works for a while. That third version that was upheld by the court is sort of the basis for this one. They've learned clearly from the legal lessons that were imposed the first time around. But I think the timing here has less to do with the Colorado attack and more to do, I'd argue, with the domestic politics of Mr. Trump's legislative agenda. Elon Musk has been dominating the news. Suddenly the news is very much back on President Trump.
So do you think this part of this move was a distraction, I suppose, from what's happening with that increasingly toxic relationship with Elon Musk?
Well, certainly the timing of it, I think. There was no necessary driving force for these things to be released last night here in U.S. time. I think you have not only the travel ban, but the ban on Harvard's foreign students, as you mentioned, and a third order attacking President Biden and literally accusing him in print of, cognitive decline during his presidency. So these three things together are sort of red meat, of course, to the Republican base in the U.S. and do shift the policy arguments dramatically away from Capitol Hill and again back towards the White House. And of course, Mr. Trump does like to be the center of attention.
And might this be an attempt by Donald Trump to perhaps send a message to other nations, including its own allies, that of what might happen, what might be on the horizon, if they anger the U.S. in one way or the other?
I suppose so. I mean, certainly, again, this has been sort of in the works for a while. The countries here, there's a little bit of evidence of sort of sloppy drafting. Congo is mentioned. It wasn't clear which Congo was required. Burma is mentioned instead of Myanmar. So, it's a little hard to know what the true rationale is other than an attempt to make sure that there's a symbolic action. Here we are, in all ways stamping down on possibility of foreign terrorism, but also public safety. Remember, one of President Trump's campaign tropes was that immigration was effectively dangerous for the U.S., that immigrants created crimes. Interesting to note on the side there that report that the government did a couple of years ago, noting that immigrants commit fewer crimes than native-born Americans. It's been removed from the internet at this point.
Now, Donald Trump, he is continuing his war against Harvard University, blocking nearly all foreign students who are planning to study there. Does he have any sort of legitimacy in citing national security and national interest concerns here?
I think it's a stretch, honestly. This is a repetition of an action already attempted by the administration using the authority of the Department of Homeland Security and the Secretary of State. All right, that was blocked almost within a day by federal court because no rationale had been provided for how this action would, in fact, improve national security. So they've moved the playing field a little bit over to the grounds of presidential power. Right. Again, the statutory authority cited in this proclamation is now basically citing the same law as that justifies the broader travel ban. That is to say, the president's discretionary authority over immigration to protect national security. So it's sort of raising the stakes. It doesn't necessarily provide any substantive rationale. And if you read the text of the proclamation, it states several things that, frankly, are untrue regarding, for example, violent crime rates at Harvard. The press release that goes with it talks about radicalized lunatics entering the country. So I don't see it, honestly. It does seem of a piece with the, sort of surge in attempts to bring Harvard to heel. Because it has had the temerity to sue the president over the numerous now attempts to try to punish it for not doing what Mr. Trump wants it to do.
Yes, and in doing so, is this just really getting very personal for Donald Trump?
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's a summary, I think, of now all 5 years in office for Mr. Trump. He does take things personally. And so what Harvard realized, though, is that it doesn't help necessarily to capitulate. Columbia University, one of its peer institutions, capitulated effectively to President Trump's early demands. And now those demands have ramped up. In fact, yesterday, President Trump called for Columbia to be de-accredited. That is, not to be able to offer degrees at all. So, from Harvard's point of view, raising those stakes is really its only way forward. I think it has seen a surge in support. It's not that easy to make Americans love Harvard, honestly. And Mr. Trump is making it about him versus Harvard. And, in terms of, his base, obviously he will win that argument. In terms of the overall conversation, I'm not so sure that's true.
And finally, Andrew, speaking of taking things personally, the president has also ordered an inquiry into the so-called conspiracy to hide the failing health of the former president, Joe Biden. You spoke about this earlier. So why is he so obsessed with this?
Well, it does strike me as odd that the president would want to raise the salience of cognitive abilities of any president, honestly. But it is a part of this sort of broader, continuing attack on Biden as what Mr. Trump has called the worst president in U.S. history. Now, as a presidential historian, I can come up with other candidates for that category. But nonetheless, we do have, I think, this continuing personalization, this idea that Mr. Biden was not only a bad president in terms of policy, but somehow illegitimate, that his policies were themselves illegitimate. He was a tool of some kind of staff. Honestly, I've never seen such a sustained attack on a predecessor by any president, certainly not since the sort of days of the Civil War and Reconstruction in the 19th century. So it's odd, but it is something that's very much appealing to conservative media in the United States, to the president's social media followers, and again, it shows that he's serious about attacking what he claims was the weaponization of government under Biden, even as others would argue that the government has been far more weaponized under Mr. Trump himself.
Okay, always good to get your thoughts on this, Professor Andrew Rudalevige from Bowdoin College. Thank you so much.
Thank you.